Hello everyone, it's Bruce from the Joinery Couch, just coming to you live from my sunny office here in Melbourne, and today it's a beautiful sunny day and it's not windy, so I'm pretty happy about that. It's nice to live in Melbourne, but it certainly is the weather that sometimes can get you down. So what's it like in your world right now? Sunny, rainy, cold, windy? What's it like? Put a little message in, I'd love to hear from you. The topic of this presentation today is really about your strategy. We want to talk about strategic growth, and it's going to be a general chat today, but I think it's really important that every business has to achieve a certain amount of growth every year. Sometimes that growth is accelerated because we've got an accelerated growth strategy, but even if it isn't accelerated, you still have to be growing year on year on year. Now, growth doesn't just happen. Growth isn't something that we just say, hey, today we're going to grow our business. It doesn't just sort of happen through osmosis. It has to happen through a strategic plan that is identified very clearly, and you have to be able to say, okay, if we want to grow to 10 employees from 5, or if we want to go from 2 million from 1 million, we have to figure out how that's actually going to happen. So it's a little bit like this. You take your car to the racetrack and you say, I would like to be the first around the track. I want to win. I want to be faster than everyone else. You want your car to go faster than everybody else in the race. Yes, absolutely you do. That's just like saying, I want my business to grow. But if we don't actually get into the how is it going to happen? So how is your car going to go faster than everybody else at the track? If we don't say, well, maybe we need to change the carburetor. Maybe we need to put a turbocharger on it. Maybe we need to change the tires. Maybe if we don't actually get into the fine details of how, the what do we want to do will never happen. It'll just be that long-standing pipe dream. And here's the sad part is I deal with too many people who have been saying for 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 or 40 years, I would love my business to grow, but I just don't think it's ever going to happen. And the missing component really is a very simple but strategic strategy that aligns with the what do you want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you might map that out today, and get into some of the details of how, but ultimately it'll be up to you to fill out the how. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Give me a second here and I'll get my screen sharing happening on my iPad. Okay, so your strategic growth plan. It's a pretty straightforward statement. You'd like to grow your business. You'd like to have more employees, more money, more profit. Really doesn't matter what it is, but most business owners, growing your business is not a bit of a stretch statement to say. Big thing is how. So I think we need to make this really, really simple. Let's not overcomplicate this. Let's not make it anything bigger than it actually is. So if we were just to break these down into two categories, and we were to say, right, there's your product and your team and your structure. So what you build is your product, and how you're going to do it is your team. And if we can just break these into two pretty simple categories, your business and your product. So if we were to talk about your business product overview, we might say we want to add something to your system. We might say we want to add flat pack. Apologies in advance for my bad writing. One of the skills, I'm pretty good at a lot of things. One of the things I'm really not good at is talking and writing at the same time, and my writing skills is terrible to begin with, so it kind of amplifies my lack of writing abilities, but please bear with me, you'll get the picture. Right, so if we talk about what we want to add to your business in the way of product, maybe flat packing. We might also say that our team structure, we want to add 4 new people. And you can expand this out. You can expand this whole section out to have as much detail as you need, but essentially this is the vision. This is what you're trying to achieve with a little bit of detail in it. It can look like this. You can go through where we're actually talking about you want to grow your flat pack division so that you've got internal processes. And we believe that the flat packing will have a massive impact on the business. So what you can do is you can go through and just put some relatively well-structured detail around what your business and your product is going to do to achieve the growth, and talk about your team and your structure, because you won't achieve the growth without the internal structure, the people in your team, and the structure for them to do that. Hopefully this is making some sense, but basically start with a fresh sheet of paper. Often looks like this. If you're interested in receiving this workbook, please just post a little message in the comments below and just say workbook please in the comments below, and I will send you the workbook. No problems at all. This is really just a nice easy workbook to use to map out your strategy. So product and overview and your team can look like this. The next thing we really want to do is we want to say, great, that sounds wonderful. You know, your strategic plan is great. It always feels great. It's a visionary sort of a thing. Now we want to get into how can we put your strategic plan on a page. So we want to say your revenue target and time frame. We want to say we want to go from 1 million to 2 million in 3 years. Terrible writing. Let me erase that. Let me actually 3 years. That's a little bit better anyway, right? So you want to start out with what your target revenue is and what time frame you want to achieve that in. We also want to talk about your current target net profit. If you don't understand net profit, send me a little message. You can put that into the comments if you want as well. Just type in net profit or NP with a question mark, and I'll get back to you and we can have a conversation about net profit. But net profit is essentially the money left over at the end of the day, the week, the year that you end up with. That's what should go into your pocket, and it should be considered after you've paid yourself. Oftentimes a smaller business, their net profit includes what they're paying themselves. So it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. But if we were just to break this into a net profit target, I believe that any business, particularly in the joinery industry, or specifically in the joinery industry, that is not performing with a 10% net profit margin after they've paid themselves. If you're not at 10%, I consider anything less than that a loss. So the reason for that is because there's just far too much risk in business. There's far too many things that could potentially happen in business. 10% to me is the break-even point. It's the point where it's just at a point where you can almost say, well, this is worthwhile. But to be really, really frank, our target has got to be 20 plus net profit. But we also want to say, you know, you can't go from 10 to 20, or you can't even go from 0 to 10, wherever you are right now, you know, overnight. So we might say, look, we're at 5% right now. We want to go to 10% within 1 year. So that's a 5% gain in net profit. Okay, so that's achievable. We can do that. Most of my clients in the GPS program have achieved a 5% net profit gain within 6 months. So certainly a 5% over 1 year is pretty achievable. The next thing you really want to look at is your targets for new volume to achieve your growth. And what that means is, if you have, let's say you do 1 kitchen a month, and that kitchen is $100,000. Your average unit price is $100,000. So then you have times 12, so 100,000 times 12, so you're doing $1.2 million. And if you say you want 10% net growth, we can then say, well, how many extra units do you need to do to achieve that? We can put this all into a bundle to say you need to do an additional 8 kitchens per year to achieve the growth you want, because each one of those is $100,000, and 8% is about 8 new kitchens will roughly get us to where we want to go, because they're going to vary. Some are going to be more and some are going to be less. So we can say, look, we need to do 8 new units, in this case it's kitchens, every year to achieve the growth we want. And this is particularly important because we can then look at our capabilities and say, if we were to put 8 new units or 10 new units through the company, what would break first? Where would it be our edge bander? Would it be our CNC machine? Would it be the size of our building, because we hold a lot of our stuff before it goes out the door? What would be the bottleneck? And so if we were to say we're going to add this, what would break first? Now, this is a very simple overview, but the important thing here is any of the major issues that you see coming up in these, we would then go over to the next sheet and write them in specifically. What are the things that we need to address to achieve this growth that we've just laid out? So here's a bit of an example. If we wanted to go from 3.7 to 5 million in 3 years, we need to go from 7.5 to 15% net profit. In this case, with this particular test case that we did, we needed to add 100 more average units per year, and that meant that it's an extra 8 to 9 units per week with this particular scenario. The question then was asked, could you do that? Do you have the capabilities to do 8 or 9 extra jobs per week? In this case, yes, we could. We had the extra capacity, so yeah, it's not a problem. We then said, right, if that was to happen today, what would be our bottlenecks? Well, we'd have a problem processing the orders because we're not fast enough at it, or we don't have the right people to do it. Or it might also be that with the addition of orders coming in, the high reliance that the customers already have on us to work them through their orders would double or triple. So we'd have to work on making the order process so much simpler. Hope this is making some sense to you, but this is an example of what we would do. And what I've given you is I've given you a bit of a breakdown in the worksheet of what you would then do to say, right, for us to achieve this, what are the 3 things we need to do? We have to have a marketing plan. That would be the first thing. The second thing is we've got to have some financial controls and budgets on what we're doing. Excuse me. If you're not working towards a financial budget or have any controls over your spending, none of your growth is going to happen, because you're going to go from a 5% net profit with 1 million to a 5% net profit with 3 million or 10 million, and you're not really going to achieve what you want. So we've really got to make sure there's some financial controls and budgets in place. And we need to address all the areas that restrict your ability to scale and put those into a prioritized project plan so that each one of those things gets crossed off. So that's essentially how I recommend you approach your strategic growth strategy for your business. I hope that makes a reasonable amount of sense to you. If what I'm saying is resonating with you, or if it's making some sense and you'd like to learn a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper, please just contact me, put a little comment in the box and say, I'd like to learn more, or whatever it is. If you've got some comments on this, again, just comment in the box and let me know. But I hope that's been some help to you, and if it has, love to hear from you. Bruce from the Joinery Coach, have a great day. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. It's certainly sunny where I am. Peace out.